Let's do it. So in your main event, Dominic, Ciryl Gane, like I said at the top, gets the dominant second round TKO over Serghei Spivac. He sends the fans home happy in Paris. There was a lot of talk going into this fight, Dominic, about the wrestling
Mm.
prowess of the polar bear Serghei Spivac and the limitations that Ciryl Gane had showed in that department in his two biggest opportunities to date with John Jones and Francis Ngannou. Me and you were adamantly on that line for Ciryl Gane. We were very much probably two of the loudest people I saw around in his corner.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to feel pretty good, right? Feels like we kind of nailed one for once.
Yeah, it feels good. Both of us putting 2 units down on the man. We were confident, and he came through and delivered. He looked amazing. That's quite a way to bounce back after a rough outing in March, losing to John for the title. It's a good way to reinsert himself right back into the mix, right back into all of those prominent names in the title discussion right now. The title fight going down, of course, in 2.5 months in November. So it was a good performance. He looked great. Really, never even was threatened with anything. The striking differential was like 109 to 11, or it was something really crazy. It was some sort of record for main events at heavyweight. So that really paints a picture of how dominant this was. Didn't get taken down. Really, Serghei never even closed the distance that much. Like, it was all Ciryl Gane for 8 minutes and 44 seconds. So it was a great performance. It's good to see him back on track. I believe Spivac still has a relatively bright future. I don't know how high he can climb, but I still think he's a threat to the heavyweight division for some of these guys. But Ciryl Gane proves he can get past this test. He kind of is in lingo here. I'm sure we'll get into that. But what did you make of the performance? Is this kind of, we were high on him, we bet on him, we put the money where the mouth is. Was this the performance you anticipated?
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
I thought there could have been some room for Spivak to at least show a little bit more in this
Mm-hmm.
fight. I wasn't sure if Gane would neutralize all of the takedown attempts, but I knew if he did, and the longer this fight stood standing, it was bad news for
Yeah.
Spivak because nobody can really hang with Ciryl Gane on the feet. I would say what you will about the John Jones fight, but John Jones took him down immediately.
Yeah.
Not saying that he couldn't hang with him on the feet. I'm just saying
Right.
you don't know. Francis Ngannou had to resort to a wrestling heavy game plan in the later rounds to win that fight. Ciryl Gane is the absolute best that heavyweight has to offer
Mm-hmm.
in terms of striking. We may have been wrong in some ways on Ciryl Gane, but it definitely kind of this fight is definitely a very it's not necessarily like a oh it answered a ton of questions for because for us it feels like we kind of figured this was how this would go,
Mm-hmm.
but we can let out like a deep breath. You know, that's sort of what this fight is for any Ciryl Gane fan, for Ciryl Gane himself. Because if he had lost this fight, and I know Sergey Spivak has done pretty well for himself over the last couple of years, but you would have been looking at a much different discussion here
Oh yeah.
if Ciryl Gane had lost. And for him to go in there and dominate the way he did and make it look like he was just another level above a guy who was really nipping at his heels in terms of the ranking spots, it's definitely like, okay, we can all take a deep breath and be like, Ciryl Gane's still here.
Yeah.
Do I know for sure if like moving on from this, if he can get past some of these other guys he's yet to fight, who he probably will if he's going to fight for a title, Tom Aspinall,
Mm-hmm.
Sergey Pavlovich? No. But as it stands right now, he's clearly one of the top five best heavyweights in the
Oh
world.
yeah. Yeah.
And I think if you want to say he's the fifth, I think the gap from him on down is pretty steep at this
Yeah.
point. So
Mm-hmm.
for him, he's looking ahead to one of those guys. I think the most likely option, it was the one talked about going in, is Tom Aspinall. Is that the fight you are anticipating we get next?
Oh, I sure hope so. I really do. I know they asked him about it directly, and he kind of just said he wants gold around his waist. He wants the title, and I get that. You kind of got to say that. But again, I just feel so. I don't know. I can't feel too confident, but Pavlovich is that backup fighter for November, right? We just kind of don't know what Stipe and John are going to do. But I would love Tom and Ciryl to duke it out, kind of really solidify a legit number one contender. And then in that case, if Stipe and John both do hang up the gloves, Pavlovich has, all right, here's the next guy that's going to dance with me for the vacant belt. So that's what I want selfishly. I think we could even dare I say, get that in by the end of the year, maybe in December. I mean, neither one of the guys took any amount of damage in their last
Mhm.
two fights. Their schedules align up. So I sure hope so. I think I'll say it. I do think that's what we will get. I think they'll get Gane on board. Aspinall obviously wants it. Ciryl Gane, Tom Aspinall, that's next by the end of the year. I feel pretty
Based
confident.
Yeah, based off the way the fights are laid out right now,
Yeah.
I don't see any other route here
Yeah.
because assuming that John Jones and Stipe Miocic do fight in November, the winner of that, if it's John Jones, there's maybe a chance we could see him try to defend against Pavlovich next year.
Mhm.
If it's Stipe, I tend to believe Stipe is going to retire. It
Mhm.
really doesn't matter. If either guy retires, if either guy continues on, I think even Tom Aspinall is sort of he's not necessarily gunning for the title shot.
I
And I
think he
think
really
because
does
of
want
that,
one more,
he
you know?
does. And I think because of that, Pavlovich is going to get that edge
Yeah.
in being the third guy right now, to being the next guy up. And I think the winner of a Tom Aspinall Ciryl Gane fight would be the perfect setup for your next vacant title fight, or maybe the winner of Stipe John Jones
Mhm.
versus Pavlovich. I know there's a lot of ifs, ands, and
Yeah.
buts there, but yeah, they're both in good spots. That is going to be another interesting fight for Ciryl Gane,
Oh,
though, Dominic,
yeah.
because you have been very high on Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall, dare I say, took some of the shine for you from what you once
Yeah.
had with Ciryl Gane,
Mhm.
especially at
Mhm.
the heavyweight division. Some of the compliments we gave Ciryl Gane, maybe Tom Aspinall has actually come around and shown us more in
Yeah.
terms of being a very well-rounded heavyweight and all this stuff that we threw praise at Gane for being.
Sure.
How do you kind of view that matchup right now? You know,
Man.
does that is that a fight that you feel like when it comes time you're highly favoring Tom Aspinall? I mean, maybe do you want to throw out some betting lines that you could see for that?
Oh my gosh, dude. Yeah. To me, I'm not Vegas, but if it's me, that's a dead even pick 'em if I've ever seen one. I think
Okay.
that's a tough fight. On the feet, they're both so much more than a lot of the other heavyweights. Quick, athletic, light, fast, precise. Like, and then you get into that grappling side where, we've seen Surreal show offensive grappling. The holes have been defensive. Tom, we haven't got to see like really a ton of anything, but we've seen a little here and there, right? He submitted Andre Arlovsky. So there are so many just beautiful things about that stylistically. I'm going dead even pick 'em. I can't lean either which way. That would be one of the more anticipated fights for me as a fan in quite some time, especially for the heavyweight division, man. Like two guys that
Mhm.
I've backed and really enjoy watching step in there at the same time. That's an incredible heavyweight, high level heavyweight fight.
Yeah, I mean, I love John Jones Stipe. Like, I love it for the legacy factor and
Hmm.
whatnot. I might be kind of on an island. I know some of the more hardcore fans kind of roll their eyes at that fight.
Hmm.
I will admit, though, a fight like Aspinall Gane feels more, at least somewhat more of a true indicator of the kind of quality that heavyweight has to offer for like the title level right now.
And
I
the
know John
future of it,
Jones.
you know?
Yeah, I mean, I say that, and I know John Jones dominated Ciryl Gane. I'm just saying,
Hmm.
I guess that maybe makes me shows that I just think Stipe is just not what he once was, and I that
Hmm.
we haven't really seen that for sure, but it's just hard to imagine he's going to come back and fight at the same caliber he was 4 years ago,
Yeah.
or even before that. So yeah, I think it's an awesome fight, and I will say though, like the line history with Ciryl Gane is truly interesting because he was basically in a dead even pick'em with John Jones,
Yeah. Yeah.
even a slight favorite. I do seem to remember. I could be wrong,
Yeah.
but it was at least a pick'em.
Hmm.
Then he was only a minus like 160 against
Yeah.
Sergei Spivac. Like going in, if this past weekend he had been fighting Tom Aspinall instead of Sergei Spivac, I mean, what are we looking at, Dominic? Are we saying? I mean, Gane's probably what, a plus 180, plus
Yeah.
170.
If that was this past weekend, Tom coming off the win and Gon coming in off a loss, yes, I'd say plus 160 ish. Hmm.
So, so how much are they going to move it
Right.
in Gane's favor based off of that win against Spivak? Because to
Hmm.
me, it didn't do a whole like it's a great win. He looked great there. It's glad to see he could bounce back from such a tough loss, but I don't know how other people who maybe weren't as high on Gone or thought Spivak might have him in that matchup. I'm not sure how they're feeling about it.
Mhm.
I'm still gonna say Gone comes in around a plus 140, plus 135.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I can see if anyone is the favorite, I do think it would be Tom. I
Yeah.
think for some reason the young up and coming guy, I feel like that would be the favorite if I had to
Well,
guess.
even if you're looking at skill sets, I mean, I know Gone is a motherfucker on the feet. I just said that. I think Tom Aspinall's just more well rounded and
Yeah. At least what we've seen, right? I would agree.
very
Yeah.
true. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
for all we know, Gone could show us a bunch there as well.
Mhm.
And it's definitely an intriguing fight, though. I have no idea how I would bet that right now as it stands. But for Sergey Spivak, anything you kind of want to add for him? I mean, this is felt like this was kind of his moment here to really catapult him into a discussion that many probably didn't see for him. Maybe even get a
Mhm.
rematch with Aspinall, which is one of his tough losses he's sustained in the UFC. I
Yeah.
mean, you seem to think that the future is somewhat bright. I don't know if I'm as optimistic. I feel like yes, he does have that style that makes him a guy that, depending on the matchup, could do well against guys that have
Mhm.
been around the top of heavyweight for a while. And but I think more often you might see him have performances at least somewhat like this. Like I don't think he does very well against like an Alexander Volkov. Like truthfully, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm not, I've never been I guess all that high on Spivak,
Yeah.
and I think this was his peak.
Yeah, I would say that's about right. I think him against the Aspinalls, the Gons, Pavlovich, if he ever would have got a John Jones fight, I think he comes out on the losing side. But like we've
Mm.
seen against Derek Lewis, or if he fought like, a Tybura, I think they even
Tai
fought in the
Tuivasa.
past, Tai Tuivasa, things like that. I think he can win. But the legitimate next future title challengers is where he loses, and therefore it's hard to really look at him past a number 7 in the world.
Mm. Seems like it sets him up nicely to fight the loser of Tuivasa Volkov, though.
Yeah. How
Fresh
about that
matchup.
timing, right? That's
Fresh
true.
matchup. So, yeah. With that, Dominic, let's talk about.